So we have something very juicy to share, even during these circumstances. The title itself is pretty self-explanatory, and as you can see, the bright smile on Shezza's face, she loves to talk about this. And it's very apropos because she is not out of bed yet, and my bed is nicely made. And I was trying not to get the bed view, but my Wi-Fi wasn't working too well, so here we go.
I wanted the bed view.
You want the bed view. You did want that. So let's jump into this. This is about connecting to your pleasure, even when there's a lot of crazy shit going on. And I would love to start with you since you've been interviewing a lot of experts. And so I'm going to somewhat put you in the spotlight here is, what does that mean to you as far as regardless of the challenges, regardless if you have to work, regardless if you're isolated, regardless if there's stress, regardless if you're alone, what does that mean? Because a lot of people, secular people, whatever that means also, they just think of pleasure being like sexual with a human being, when it could be, say, taking in a beautiful red strawberry and eating it, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow. I mean, there is so much juicy information on this. Like, wow, we've been super going through it over on the Ecstatically Alive Summit that I've just run. And really, to me, it starts with feeling your full body.
Yeah.
So it's like, are you going to go and brush your teeth like this and be thinking about what's been going on like tomorrow and like all the crazy things that could happen and the bad case scenarios? Or are you going to brush your teeth and make it sexy?
I've never seen anyone brush their teeth just like that. Can you do that again?
And sexy doesn't mean that you're just like making a sexy show, because again, that is like, it's not a show. It's an aliveness inside of your body. So it's connecting the toothbrushing to your yoni or your lingam, maybe even pumping the muscles inside of your yoni or your lingam, like your pee muscles and your poo muscles. And that kind of acts like a pump that can kind of like get the energy flowing into the rest of your body as you brush your teeth and connect you with your sensuality.
It's interesting you mention this because when we are, say, in survival mode, then we become cut off. And so this area, just say the basic three chakras, and you talked about the yoni, it being like, say, the root chakra, and even the one by the belly. If you don't feel rooted, if you're in survival mode, there's a possible chance that you're either hyper or, hyposexual right now, where it's like the only way to get out energy is through, say, masturbation and sex. Whereas if you're totally disconnected in this area, it's like you're not even thinking of that at all. And so this is about connecting to sexuality, I feel, to where it becomes a central play through little simple everyday things.
All day long. Come back to your sensuality. When you get on that fear, all of us, first of all, just going onto Facebook right now is very intense. I go from like, you can go from one story where somebody has this opinion and then you're like on to the next opinion, and 5 minutes on Facebook can be almost like an annihilate, like, so like, and there can be so much fear within us about our lives. What are we doing? What is going on? And when we bring it back into the body and into the sensuality, we're bringing it back to the moment. So I really like the idea of sensual mindfulness. So it's like, rather than just so I'll talk about self-pleasure in a little while because I love that too. But it's like making all of life a sensually mindful practice so that we're not getting swept away into all of the dramas going on that are extremely easy to get swept away in.
Absolutely. It's I imagine some people, watching this, they could still connect this more to the act of sex itself, or not really able to kind of understand that bridge. But the thing is that if you're not in your heart, if you're not in a state of joy, you're not present. And if you're not present, you're not with whom you're with, you're not in your body. And so this connection to inviting sensuality in a way, as Shezza describes here, is kind of a really clear indicator of saying that you'll know if you're tuned in or not, because it's all about being tapped in, tuned in, and turned on to life. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And making like things a little bit playful. I mean, if we are going to like, there can just be so much seriousness. I mean, there's people on the one hand self-isolating, who are feeling lonely, feeling disconnected, like really in need of touch. There's people with relationship sagas going on, and there's people who are being absolutely driven like batshit crazy by their children. So these are the kind of like scenarios that I see. And at some level, I think most people kind of fall into somewhere around there. But this is a perfect practice for us to take this opportunity to be more alive in our bodies, to be more sensually alive, and to be more like bring the playfulness to our life, whatever we're going through.
Absolutely. Yes. So how do you, I'm going to adjust this light, by the way, because I don't like how I look. I look kind of orange. See if this works here. I'm orange, man. Hi.
You look an orange, Ray.
See if this changes anything.
Better.
This one better?
A minute ago was better. No, now it's orange. Yep, that's it.
Okay. Orange, man. So how do you do that, as far as, so you mentioned something about these particular people. By the way, if you have any questions, I'm glancing. We'll answer any questions here if I see anyone popping in there. So sometimes I describe to people, clients, about like why it is that it's hard for a person to say, get a message, or to be open, to be curious. And so, like, as far as my demographics and who I work with, a person who, say, is just looking for a couch to sleep on, the way I talk and communicate on where I can see this person go, they might not be there. So all right now they're available and ready for is for me to give them food. Okay. So at a very basic level of survival, a person is contracted, they're collapsed, they're completely in dense matter where it's just survival. So thinking positive can sound outrageous. Having a different point of view might not be available because they're pretty much more in their limbic brain, their reptilian brain. So they're not in a prefrontal cortex where they're open, awake, to where they're maybe in a different state of mind to be open to information. So you and I are practiced into this, meaning that it's not like we just go 3 months of just checking out, not paying attention. Then when we feel bad, then we take care of our body. This has been a practice for decades for you and I. So how do you do it? How do you get there, especially if you've been hit hard and you want to get back up?
Yeah, and I really want to say that I still get into my reptilian brain sometimes, but first off, I know it's like coming back into the body, connecting with, I have a deep relationship with spirit, the infinite intelligence, whatever you want to call it. I feel having some kind of relationship with something more than our little minds is so key, because it's like, oh, I can rely. I have another place where I can go to and I can rely on that space when I feel my reptilian brain taking over. I know where to go. And that does absolutely come from years of practice. And being in that moment by moment, okay, I notice. So it starts with noticing our minds And then I'm noticing that, and I'm opening to something more powerful than this little clenched up, constricted Shezza. I can go more into my empowered Shezza. And in that empowered Shezza, I can bring the more aliveness of my being and of my body and connect it.
Absolutely. You know, when you did say, I have my space, I connected to that reality and I felt that in my body.
I love
Now,
that.
now whether or not that is a projection or not, it does not matter because again, I was on a webinar yesterday and I went through very simple, quick processes. And one of them was this. I said that many of us drink warm tea or coffee. So look how big this thing is, by the way.
I love big cups.
So I said, more and often, we're not aware of the hypnotic cue of just holding something warm and the steam rising. See, you're there already too. And so, see, you went there. So, yeah, see, that was an example because how often do we like people grab a cup or coffee? But the moment you start doing this in a more mindful way, the moment even you're thinking about making it, you smell it, that your body will drop into, oh, I can taste it. I can feel that I'm there. So even just a cup like this can get me there. But that is through being able to practice.
Cup like that can get me right there, baby.
Oh, funny. So
But yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely a practice.
yeah.
Okay, my mind is spiraling out of control, and I'm gonna bring it back to this simple joy and pleasure of being alive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's you mentioned something before we went on. You talked about how you really like to get into the stuff that you like to get into, if there's a challenge and so forth. So you go for it head on. So when you're in that space, because you mentioned two things, you said I can go to that reptilian place, and I can too. In fact, when my son's school was shut down, it was very sudden, and I see clients from my home, and so to have a 5.5-year-old in the background, and then my nanny leaves also, so it was one of those like equal playing ground to where my money and my access and my resources were not going to help me. I'm starting to get poofy hair here. You know what I mean? We're all like, there's having some challenges. This is not a big challenge, but point was that he has pent up energy. He wants to get out there and play, and I'm trying to contain him plus my own. I'm used to going outside and so forth. So I found myself getting snippy, like talking in a way where I'm like, I'm not really angry, but man, and I could see it on his face. He doesn't take it personally. My son he like just looks at me like, are you mad? I'm like, he's like kind of my bullshit detector. I'm like, no, I'm not mad, but I kind of sound like a dick. Like, okay, because I've been getting caught up in my head with what I need to do. Too much Facebook, because of when it first happened, like the school shut down and we were being blasted by media, like, is it a real, it's a hoax? We're kind of in the middle of all that. I was kind of like getting caught up with that. And I realized that I'm not with me right now. I'm out there. I'm not with me right now.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and what's interesting about this timing is I was going to go on a vacation to Guatemala. I was going on this amazing retreat. And of course I didn't go, but he went to his mom's first time, like for 10 days, like since he's been in my life. It was the most beautiful time to reset. So now Max is back, and it's like, oh, okay, this is actually fun. This is easy. I can do this. But I needed that reset. How do you reset yourself when you're in the middle of a challenge in a relationship? Then you have all this stuff kind of going on.
Mm-hmm. How do I reset myself? Well, I will admit that I yesterday had a big relationship situation, and it's like you said, when I see those little tiny pieces, first thing I do is I recognize that this isn't a new story, okay? This isn't the first time I've everything that we experience is really something we've already experienced many times before. So it's like, oh, okay, first of all, noticing what's going on and then saying, okay, this, I can detach it from this scenario right now and see like whatever is coming up for us, for example, in this quarantine time is really our deepest stuff coming up that we've been working on for many years. But this is a time for us to go like, you know, here it is. Here's the big punch. And so seeing like, okay, awesome. I'm getting to notice one of my patterns. And I know that when one of my patterns really comes up, it's a beautiful opportunity. So I no longer see it as something I'm stuck in, but now I see it as this beautiful opportunity to bring loving awareness and sensuality to, so that it can like not have its grip on me anymore.
So beautiful. Absolutely. I'm not sure if it was a serious question, but Dawn mentioned about talk about lonely. But she also said something else. So I'm not sure if it was a serious question, but I want to talk about loneliness for a moment. And but before I go to that, and I want to hear what you have to say about that, is I spoke about that same thing you talked about, that this is a moment where all our stuff is coming out, because most of us have been dealing with stuff but have been checking out, have had other distractions, or just unaware of it, of like what was there. So again, if we're overactivated in, say, our 3 chakras, and say that we haven't dealt with our own stuff, well, think about this. A lot of people have money issues, you know, regardless of the coronavirus or not. So think of root chakra. Can I take care of myself? Can I provide for myself? While you might blame this story, that is a story that has been inside of you for a long time. So your shit's going to for sure come up, because when your shit comes up, you know, and other times you might go to a bar, have a drink or something else where you have to kind of stay with it. The second chakra, you know, it's about passion, creativity, and whatever is. So if you have had a lack of passion, creativity in your life, you might blame a story out there. I can't do this and that and so forth. And then, you know, your solar plexus, your sense of self, you know, if you don't have a strong sense of self, then if you're losing your job, that's going to even further exasperate that issue of your sense of self, because your sense of self is not your career. But for some people, that's all they know. So a lot of stuff is coming up into like loneliness.
Yeah.
Is this that well, first off, it's this. If a person connects to the experience of being lonely, is that truly loneliness? And number 2, is it truly bad? Like in a moment that you experience fully in your body loneliness to its fullest without pushing anything away and taking away the labels, for me and majority of my clients, it neutralizes. It might go into sadness of something like not moving, and then it moves into neutrality, into maybe even gladness, or just like, okay, it's not that bad.
Mm-hmm. I've gone through a lot of loneliness in my life. It's been kind of like a core thing. And I always say that loneliness has been the gateway to my true authentic joy, because
Yeah.
in that loneliness, when you can really stay in it and go deep within it, it's a portal to yourself. It's a portal to God, to like it is that kind of like longing for you. And so if you go in it, it's a beautiful thing to experience loneliness, although it's very painful. It's a calling. It's an initiation.
Wow, I love that. Do you have, I'm kind of putting you on the spot, a simple exercise or process to describe or even take the viewers through of what you do? You know, anything that comes to mind of like, whether it's how you do it or you actually guide us through a quick little thing, just curious.
All right. Well, we can also talk about self-pleasuring, but really being in your body and feeling, ah, let me sit up here. Let me get serious. um, Touching your own body and feeling yourself here and fully, like, again, like you said, like you're not pushing that loneliness away. You're simply being with it. You're like being the loving presence that you're desiring. And so bringing beautiful, yummy, delicious touch to your body, and saying, like, making love to yourself. I love you. And that's whether you're like in bed and actually doing a self-pleasure ritual, which I highly recommend, but really, like, anywhere that you're at, even if you're walking down the street or if you feel that sense of loneliness, like really telling yourself, I love you, I've got you, I am here for you. And feeling that loneliness and dropping so deeply into it. I always say, feel the loneliness and be with the loneliness until loneliness doesn't have anything to teach you anymore.
Wow, thank you. Yes, absolutely. I went there with you as far as when you describe it. It's very easy for me to connect to different realities when people talk about it. I can connect to the frequency of that. So I totally get what you're saying. So about loneliness also is more than often, because I experienced this. This happened when I first, became a full-time father, maybe a little bit before then. And I've only had one girlfriend since I've had a child. And so it was a learning experience as far as, and you met my ex, and that's the last person I've been with. It's been like a year to 2 years since we've ended the relationship. And as you see, I'm talking about, so it's still somewhat a relationship. And, but part of the challenge I had was, or I experienced was, the weekends we would plan to say get together, and then she would go through like a process and say, I'm processing, I'm not feeling it, where I was like, I had a child. And so I'd feel this something in my body. And I was with my son, Max, and I was thinking, it'd be so great to have a family. It'd be so great. Like, what I'm missing is what I see. And I wasn't aware of how I was getting caught up with that illusion, that the reason why I felt this way, because I wasn't out there. And so I somewhat would project this energy or this blame onto her. Like, I could have done something. I sat here and blah, blah, blah. And then I found myself smoking pot more than like usual. Like, and I'm not really necessarily a major pot smoker, but I found myself late at night. Then there was a moment I stopped and went, oh, I'm bored. I'm not being creative. I'm not being activated. And that's when there was a shift, especially when her and I broke up, and like, there's no challenges, no challenging relationship. I wasn't waiting for a woman to be with us. And I felt the energy. I felt it anyway. I'm like, oh, fuck, that's mine. It could have been here before my son was here. Oh, this is the energy when I would maybe text someone to say in the past to hook up. Oh, this is the energy when I would go into action. And so what was great about this is that this is why isolation is really easy for me. I had a young child. I wasn't able to go out to someone's house and do the like typical things. I had to be with it. I had to sit with it, and it helped me move through that. And it wasn't loneliness. It was that I was given all my power to this illusion, and other people lift me up. And it was like I was hoping that she would be my muse and my light. And that's what it was, because she was filled with light and happy. I wasn't doing it for myself. So that is what I learned, and say the thing I might call loneliness, which is important because so many people get stuck with the apparent reality or apparent truth. That's just the apparent, what you can see. The transparent belief in that for me was, oh, I need to be more creative. I need to be more activated. I haven't learned how to be the new Ray now that I have a child. It kind of, and as you know, Max showed up when he was 6 months old.
Mm-hmm.
So I never went, oh, I first kind of was survival mode to acclimate to being a father, and then he moved to me full time. It was more him. It was more like, who am I now as Ray, as a father? And that is what I've been learning the last 2 years. It wasn't loneliness. It was that I wasn't connected to who I really am and my new becoming.
Love that. So it's like we project. Well, I say the same thing with depression. Don't use the word depression. Depression means a million things. Break your depression down into what it actually is. Some people have depression for years. It's really guilt. It's really shame. It's really insecurity. It's, so go underneath what you're feeling, the feeling is, because there's a way more in-depth layer to be discovered about yourself that can pull you out. So I love your example.
That's actually the same thing. And I have worked with depression many times. And when I say this is a rare case, but it did happen. And I worked with someone who had been suffering with depression for, say, 30 years. And then she went on meds and she did some other stuff. Then she no longer was. And then she started spiraling and was back in it. And we did just one session and she was out forever. One session. And it was some really deep spiritual work and some reframing and everything else that she felt. So people say depression can take a long time to move through, and that's true. But also, you can move through it very quickly. It's a state of mind. And if you practice that continuity illusion, now when I say continuity illusion, like I mentioned, oh, I'm lonely because you're not showing up for Max and I'm lonely because I feel as I was putting that blame onto my ex, will basically give someone or situation the power versus being with it. But by giving it that power, it creates the illusion where we perpetuate it. So it's realizing what you said, don't call it depression. You can if you want, but it'd be this. What does depression feel like? What does this thing I call depression really feel like? Oh, I'm sad. Am I okay with being sad? Am I okay with crying? Is it okay for me to yell and scream? Is it okay to be with it? There's ways to drop into that to where you peel it away, where you realize, oh, it's actually this. And that's what you maybe probably come to learn, in this incarnation.
Right. Exactly.
Typically those big things, I've worked with over 6,000 clients. Every client I've worked with, usually they have like 1 to 3 things. That's all. They might have 10 symptoms of this, that. When you break it down, and so I came to work on knowing that I'm worthy. Oh, I come to work on to trust myself, not where I put my trust on other things, not what people say. Little core fundamental things like that.
Beautiful. Yes, and don't forget to get inside of your body and just shake it up and be alive, because a lot of times we can also just get really stuck in our heads, and bringing it back into the body, back into the aliveness, and back into being open for there to be pleasure even in that pain can just pull us right out of some of these old stories and back into our hearts, back into our bodies, and begin to propel us out of those deep places.
Absolutely. Do you have anything coming up that you're leading that people can find you to?
Yes, I am. I've just completed the Ecstatically Alive Summit. It's all on Facebook. You can go to just type in Ecstatically Alive. It's a big group there. And there's tons of videos on pleasure and on just dealing with being a human during this time of quarantine. And and I'm also just asking people if they're interested in, I'm offering 30-minute just check-ins with people. I'm really wanting to check in with people and understand how they're doing. And yeah, so if any of you are interested in having a 30-minute session with me, please get in touch.
That's awesome. A question about how, what I really love is you said is just how to deal with being human. And I love how you shared that, because again, we can easily associate pleasure to the act of sex itself. And in this process, people are disconnecting themselves from a lot of pleasure, which will lower their immune system.
Mm-hmm.
Key.
Absolutely. Let's not deny that having like a super hot, sexy partner who you're having great sex with and getting massages and yummy, juicy touch with is like, okay. But I believe every single one of us can be in pleasure. And actually, we're more likely to have that yummy, juicy, hot sex with someone else if we know how to be in our own pleasure with ourselves. So pleasure to me is a practice. It's a practice of getting out of that reptilian brain that wants to go and go and go and analyze the future and analyze your life and do whatever it does. Everyone has a unique one. And getting back into the body and back into the aliveness of being here on this planet in this body that we've been gifted.
I want to be very transparent. And there's no judgment with this. So I recognize when I've ever attempted to be with someone, sexually, if they can't dance or they couldn't dance or didn't like to dance, that always showed up in the bedroom.
I know.
Yes.
Everybody needs to dance. It's like the best foreplay there is.
Yeah, and yeah, also humor. I once I went on a date and it was with this guy was voted best comedian for like 4 or 5 years in a row, and she was just like checked out, not getting it because of just her relationship with herself. We never had sex, but just that transcended with just how she connected to life. So it's like dancing, laughter and stuff, how a person sees life, laughs about life, plays with life, dances with life. It shows up definitely in the bedroom.
It does. And like you said to me, you wrote me the other day and said that you liked how I talked about spirituality, but I didn't make it serious. Yeah. And honestly, can we just really hone things in? We need like a massive shot for each and every being on the planet right now of humor and playfulness and not taking it all so seriously, because whether you're wrapped in whatever drama is going on inside your world, and also there is a lot of drama going on in the outside world, and if we can bring playfulness, joy, and sexy aliveness and dancing to all of that, then honestly, I think we're actually benefiting the whole planet.
And it's the way you respond to things. So, for example, I really love Mr. Rogers. Okay. And there's a part in the movie where whether it was accurate or not, is where the journalist is trying to criticize him or say, you must have, come on, tell me, you must have your shit going on. And you think that, say, Mr. Rogers is going to react or say something. He goes in a different space. He goes, well, thank you for really caring about me.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a really amazing part, and everyone in the movie theaters was like, whoa. So when we're in that playfulness, we respond with love, with compassion. There's a different perspective on it, everything. And we need that right now. This is not to say that that we shouldn't take care of our health and that we're afraid of loved ones. What we're saying is that when you're in that space for playfulness, you're going to be able to respond in a much better way. That's just bottom line. You're gonna be able to deal with things in a much better way. Like all majority of the parents at my son's school are just losing their shit. I had to get off the feed. Oh my God, what are we gonna do and whatever.
Oh,
And
parents are really going through it right now. I mean, I think parents are honestly having some parents are having some of the most crazy time of their life right now.
I'm having a blast.
I love that because you're Dr. Ray.
So we're having a good time, you know. But again, when I was dealing with he's going to be here full time. I need to get some virtual things going on. I got to set up his iPad to survival mode, whatever. I got to find help that's healthy and whatever. And that once it was done, it was just like, oh, here I am again, and we're just playing again. But I went that space of like, and my son was looking at me. He was like, "Are you mad?" I'm like, "Am I?" I had to check in. I'm like, "Oh no, I guess I've been in my head."
And that's why I feel that bringing this playfulness, this pleasurable, I call it the ecstatically alive way of living, is actually one of perhaps the ways that we can be of greatest benefit on the planet, because through this we're responding with more play, we're bringing more pleasure, more aliveness, and we're allowing the whole world to become a little lighter in our presence.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I so by the way, I'm going to be also sharing this Wednesday, April 22nd at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, a free webinar, and I put a link in the feed, and I'll continue to share this. But we're going to get into space. Those who are struggling with this whole experience, from feeling loneliness to even separated from loved ones to just fear of, you know, uncertainty or tomorrow and all those things, that we're going to be doing some exercises in this amazing private chat room on Zoom. So I'll be practicing this with people so they can be in a state of mind. And if there's parents watching us, it'd be good to watch what it is that's, you know, been working for my family.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's inspiring. Yay.
Yay. Thank you for joining me. It was a blast.